So making this more of a documenting details, I guess, and updating everyone else I've called family. So Mandy got out of surgery late last night. Well, I say late last night, it was like 7:30, but she sat in recovery for quite some time. And I thought it was weird because she'd not sat in there that long through any of the other surgeries. But we finally got to a room. It was probably 10:30, I can't remember, pretty late. But she couldn't talk. They first thought, what they said was, being under anesthesia that long sometimes does that. The vocal cords need time to wake back up. They get irritated from the tube and a plethora of other, it seems normal. So anyway, so everything else that I noticed that was off, I just assumed it was all part of that. So she was a little off last night. She got to hurting. She was just, I keep using the word incoherent, like, like she was still doped up pretty good. Well, then she started, just kind of snapped out of it for a little bit. And it just kind of seemed like, well, anesthesia is still kind of wearing off, so no big deal. Tried to get her to sleep throughout the night. Never could communicate well. Had a few moments to where she would talk to me. Couldn't really understand what she was saying, but most of the time. But every now and then I'd make it out. Anyway, this morning she woke up. She was doing okay. Actually, it's like she put on chapstick. It's like she reached over and was able to use her fingers and put on chapstick fairly normally for a few minutes. And then they brought her in some heavy pain medicine. She was hurting, and telling them she was hurting. She couldn't really talk, but she got it across that she was having pain. They gave her Dilaudid, and which for her is the heavy drugs. Well, it knocked her out. I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna take a nap too. So I went to sleep. Well, when I woke up, she was barely breathing. She had laid there and went to her breathing went so shallow that it was just almost non-existent. Then they came and did vitals. Like, I woke up as they were coming in to do vitals, and we noticed it. They took her oxygen, or checked her oxygen, and it was really, really low. So she was not doing well, and it continued to get worse through the morning. She had a few more episodes to where she just, like, it's like her body just forgot to breathe. She was would breathe out and never would breathe back in again. And like, so they were bringing in oxygen. They were getting, talking about ventilator tube, and then she kind of snapped out of it again. She began to breathe. They checked her stats. Her oxygen was super low, but it came back up. They were getting prepped to kind of treat the symptoms, and the nurse was agreeing with me. We were talking about it, and I just told her, I said, I don't feel good about this. This isn't normal. I said, she's not this person. This is not her. She's tough. Yeah, anyway, she agreed with me. Called neuro team. Neuro team came down. It's the weekend neuro team. It's the one that they're all pretty great, but their personalities aren't all that great. This was one that I don't really care a whole lot for his personality, but regardless, he came, and he came in, and I had to just tell him sternly that this is not my wife, and I get, that he has medical experience, but there's something wrong. And so he listened, and she was already scheduled to get an MRI. So he said, tell you what, he said, let's do a CT scan and just see what's going on. He said it'd be quick and less aggravating and less painful for her as well. So followed her up, went to the CT machine. It's on the same floor. We were going to get a CT. The plan was get a CT scan, and then like right down the hall was the MRI, so we were just going to go back to back. Did the CT scan, took a few minutes, transferred her to the MRI table, rolled her in there, getting her prepped. It was time for me to walk away because it was going to be like 45 minutes. I said, I'm going to go get coffee. And mind you, this is only a few minutes. We just like rolled out of the CT room. I didn't make it to the elevator, and the nurse called me, told me to turn around and come back, that they're taking her to the operating room. And she didn't even know the details. So by the time I literally walked down the hall, another neurosurgeon was standing there looking at her results and explaining to me what was happening. So I'm going to tell you what he told me. And it was explained, you know, some of the side effects, some of the dangers of the surgery. It's just like with Sarah's. You know, it can be a side effect of the surgery that because they're in there and you know, blood gets in the system, it can cause meningitis. It's not like a meningitis like where you pass it on to person to person. It's a non-viral type meningitis. It's just basically the blood's irritating the body. That's what happened to Sarah. So it's always a factor. You know, it could always happen among a plethora of other things. Well, one of the dangers of this surgery that could happen is that her brain would swell from the irritation from, and he described this last night. I was so tired. You just let it go in one ear and out the other for whatever reason. But he said it took a lot of work to get that tumor off of her brain stem and out of the cerebellum area. He said that area is going to be far more irritated than anywhere else. And he said, I don't expect it to do anything. He said, but it could, you know, fester up. And we'll address that if it happens. And that's all he said. So he did tell me. He did warn me. It didn't sink in until she goes to the ER or operating room, sorry. And I start thinking about what he told me last night, and I went back to that sentence in my head, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's it. That's exactly. So what they had to do is they took her back in the OR. They're opening back up one of her incisions from last night, and they're going to remove the bone plate that they removed last night or yesterday during the surgery. They're going to remove the bone plate and allow room for the brain to swell. No idea anything after that. That's all he described to me. He didn't tell me we're going to put her in ICU with the bone removed and we're going to put it back. I don't know. I don't know what that looks like, so I have no details. All I know is my wife almost died this morning right in front of me. And the realization of that has been pretty heavy. So, yeah. So there's what's going on right now. I thought after surgery it was all uphill, or all downhill. Sorry, but so far it's just an uphill trot. So please continue to pray for her. That's all I got for today.